Good morning. I'm William K. Hasse, the eldest son of Bill and Marge. And on behalf of my mom and my two beautiful sisters, Sharon and Judy, and my three brothers, each of whom you will hear from shortly, I want to say thank you for being here. You honor my dad by your presence, and you have been a huge comfort to his family with the words and memories that you've shared with us, and it means more than I can tell you. Pastor Wilkerson stepped out, but I want to make sure that I say thank you to him. He adjusted his schedule to be here with us this morning, which was really important to my mom, and so I thank him for that and for leading the singing. And my old friend, nemesis, my former, Eddie Lapina and I were on the same wrestling team, and I don't think I ever beat him in a wrestle down. But thank you so much for being here and for what you had to share, Eddie, about my dad. I grew up here. Most people knew me as Bill. My family called me Billy. But I grew up here, and people that knew both my dad and me pretty well would say that we weren't very much alike. But my dad and I did share some really important similarities. First of all, we both rooted for the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago Bears. Not that it did much, but we were both Chicago fans. My dad and I were both saved and baptized here, as was already mentioned. In fact, my father led me to Christ. Of course, we share the same name. He's William Lewis, I'm William Kenneth. But his father was William. My eldest son is also William, so that's an important thing. And also my dad and I are firstborn sons with multiple younger brothers. And my childhood, and especially my teenage years, are filled with memories of my dad looking me in the eye and explaining to me that I had to be an example for my younger brothers. You have younger brothers, you need to set an example for them. And as a teenager, a rebellious teenager, I remember telling him, I don't want to be an example. I don't want them to follow me. And he said, sorry, you're the eldest, and it's a burden that all eldest sons bear. I can't escape it. What I didn't understand then, but I see really clearly now, is that all along, my father was setting the example for me, especially about the role of being a father. I think the most important thing that a Christian father can do for his children is to point them to their heavenly Father. As Ephesians puts it, train them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So my concept of the Heavenly Father was absolutely shaped and molded by how I saw my earthly father live and move and have his being. So how was my father like the Heavenly Father? Just a few ways I want to talk about. First, my dad was loving. Eddie and Pastor Wilkerson both mentioned it. We're going to be repetitive, I think, because my father was consistent. My dad loved the Lord. He loved the Lord's people. He loved the Lord's work. He loved my mom. He loved his kids, and he really, really loved his grandkids and great-grandkids. He didn't talk about love much, and he wasn't overtly affectionate, but you could see how deeply his children loved him. If you could see that, you would understand, as somebody already said, that they loved him because he first loved them. My dad was also joyful. He wasn't a spontaneous smiler, but he was a very joyful man. Sometimes getting him to smile for a photo, he would grimace instead of smile. But nobody who knows my dad would ever disagree that he had a joyful heart. He laughed and he exuded joy. My dad was also a peaceful man. My dad had some brothers who were real firecrackers, and some people would say that my father married a woman who has a little bit of Hungarian firecracker in her too. But my dad's nature, by and large, was peaceable. He was a contented man. He knew how to be soothing. And if there was ever conflict in our home, it was usually my dad who served as the peacemaker. My dad was also patient. If there was a kid in our family who tested my father's patience, yeah, I regret to say it, it was me. But he never once failed one of those tests. He would count to 10 under his breath. He would inhale sharply and purse his lips. Sometimes he would just shake his head at me wordlessly. But he always maintained his composure. In fact, I have no recollection of my father ever losing his temper with me. And trust me, I gave him plenty of opportunity. My dad was kind. He had a kind disposition. I remember as a kid that he would make room in our kid-crowded station wagon for elderly widows that we would stop and pick up and bring to church and then take back home. If somebody needed help, my father was quick to help. He was kind in that way. My father was faithful. As already was mentioned, he was practically an institution in the high school 1 Sunday school department here at church. Last night at the viewing, I met so many guys who said, "Your father was my Sunday school teacher," and they were about as old as I am. So he did teach a high school Sunday school boys class for 60 years. That's 3,000 Sunday school lessons every Sunday morning for basically his entire adult life. He was also a deacon here, serving faithfully for 57 years. He was faithful to his commitments, and he made sure that his kids knew how to keep their commitments too. My dad was gentle. I think my father's gentleness is what attracted children to him. He could be a tease, but beneath that veneer of sometimes goofiness, he was a very gentle man, which intrigued me as a young man, as a teenager, because, as already has been said, he was a strong guy. He was chiseled. And, he was kind of a man's man. Last night, a couple people told me he reminded them of John Wayne. But at the core, my dad was a gentle man. So those are some examples my father set for me. And if you're tracking, you know that all of those are fruits of the Spirit. And I'm here to testify to you that consistently and without pretense, in the privacy of our home and also in the bump and grind of the heavy construction work world, my father manifested those traits in his life. And in so doing, he pointed me and my siblings to the Heavenly Father and to his only begotten Son. That, my friends, I think is a legacy worth leaving. I'm going to close. My father did love Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and I'll tell you, he loved the Psalms too. And there's a psalm that speaks to me that I'll share just a few verses. From the end of the earth, this is Psalm 61. From the end of the earth I will cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been a shelter to me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in your tabernacle forever. I will trust in the shelter of your wings. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Thank you.